First Word. Pastor Dave here, coming to you from beautiful Linwood, Minnesota. Glad you found us this morning. Hope you're doing well. Feels pretty amazing outside today, like spring is in the air. First Word is a podcast where we study the book of the Bible together. We're going through the book of Mark, reading short passages and just discussing what God's Word says. And so today we're in Mark chapter 6, verses 46 to 56. And so let's jump into it. Let me see here. There we go. So Mark 6, we'll read this and discuss it. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because the wind was against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost, and they cried out, because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down, and they were completely amazed. For they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. When they crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret and anchored there. As soon as they got out of the boat, people recognized Jesus. They ran throughout that whole region and carried the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. The word of the Lord. All right, so interesting story here. Now, first of all, Jesus had been working hard at getting away and getting some rest. If you remember yesterday, they were on a mountainside getting away into the wilderness, trying to get some rest. And then all the people came and Jesus taught them. He had compassion on them. And then 5,000 men plus women and children, he fed them with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And so they didn't get away and they didn't get any rest. So now Jesus tells his disciples to go in the boat and go away. And Jesus goes up on the mountainside. And then nighttime comes and Jesus sees the disciples struggling to get across the lake. And it's windy. And Jesus walks on water out to the disciples and just freaks them out. Now, this is an interesting miracle because it seems to be a useless miracle. All the other miracles Jesus does, like they demonstrate who he is, but they all benefit people. They're works of compassion, like the end of the passage I just read, Mark 6:55 and 56, where people were bringing the sick and those that were ill, and Jesus would heal them. But this walking on the water really isn't benefiting anyone. It's like Jesus maybe is just showing off. Like, why does he choose to walk on the water? And so there's this big question of what is the meaning of this miracle? And there's a clue in verse 52 where Jesus says they had not understood about the loaves. So that's a clue. What's going on here? What does it mean they didn't understand about their loaves? So now scholars will argue about this, but I think we know. I think the best answer is that they were not understanding what we talked about yesterday, the parallels between Jesus and Moses. Yesterday we talked about Jesus and Moses in the feeding of the 5,000, and Mark seems to be alluding to the parallels are just continuing. Jesus is showing these Jewish men who he is. This big question in Mark, who is Jesus? The big question that you and I have to wrestle with for our own lives, who is Jesus? And Jesus seems to be showing them that Jesus is Moses' successor, and he is far greater than Moses. So yesterday, you have the people in the wilderness, like the Israelites were when they left Egypt, and Jesus brings bread from heaven, manna, to the people in the wilderness. And then Jesus goes up on the mountain to pray, which if you read the story in Exodus, Moses would go up on the mountain to commune with God. And then Jesus walks through the water, and he walks on the water. He doesn't make a path through the water, But there's these allusions to the story when the Israelites were leaving Egypt and they were in between the Red Sea and Egypt, and the Egyptian army was pursuing them, and there was a path made through the water. We have a couple verses besides the story in Exodus, but Psalm 77:19 says, "Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen." Isaiah 51:10, "Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made a road in the depths of the sea, so that the redeemed might cross over?" And so you see these parallels, continued parallels to Moses. And then when Jesus gets to the boat, he says, "Take courage, it is I." Now, we're not for sure exactly how the Jewish people heard that, but in the Bible, when Moses communed with God and Moses asked God, "Who do I say you are?" he said, "I am who I am." And in the Greek, these words, "it is I," can be translated, "I am." And so Jesus is letting the people know that I am the new Moses, but the greater Moses. I am God coming to deliver you. The disciples are not figuring it out, as we talked about at the beginning. Their hearts were hardened. They're not going to really figure it out till after the resurrection. But Mark wants us to figure it out right now. Remember Mark 1:1, where he starts with the end of the story in mind, and he says, at the very beginning of Mark, this story is the beginning of the good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. Jesus, it seems, is telling these disciples, I am the new Moses. I am coming to deliver you and to bring you into the promised land, a land without grief, without tears, without sin. One day, everything will be made right. All right, friends, good to be with you. Here's our closing music. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace for today. For tomorrow, may you have peace. Artwork for First Word is by Emily Lemon. Sound production by Chris